All right, Trevon. So the Boston Celtics have been running away with the number one seed in the East. They just played the New York Knicks on Saturday night prime time. They beat them 116 to 102. And it was actually a really good game, especially in the first half. But the Boston Celtics, it just seems like everything's coming together for them, man. And this year seems to be their year. So who do you think is the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics this season and preventing them from winning the Eastern Conference and reaching the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I think that's just a testament also to the Eastern Conference and how much better the Boston Celtics are in the regular season every year. Like this is becoming a very consistent thing, which is why they're top of the favorites and always considered the top pick to win the NBA Finals every year. But I think the biggest threat to them is actually the New York Knicks, even though they just beat them pretty convincingly last night in that Saturday primetime game. But you do also have to remember that Julius Randle did not play. OG Anunoby did not play. He's had a huge impact on the squad since he's came aboard. And I still would feel good about the Knicks because Jalen Brunson is averaging around 28 points a game, which is amazing, especially for a guard his size. And Jalen Brunson, I think, has to be in that top, definitely top 10. I think he's around that top five, if we're being honest. There's so many guards that I think he can really stack up well against. And if you have that consistency from him, which is what the Knicks really needed, they needed a leader, a guy who can really provide a lot of things for this squad. Like I said, consistency. I think you have that as far as your offensive driving piece. Julius Randle, when he's there on the court, he's a really big force that can really put a lot of downhill pressure on the interior of defenses. And a lot of times he loves to fall for that fall away jumper, that step back three. But we all know that his biggest strength is to be in the paint. And if he can continue to really just hone in and focus on that interior ability that he has, I think he could be even better than what he has been playing. And we know that he's just continually improved over the years. And it's amazing to see how he has come along and just evolved his game and on an NBA standpoint. And then OG Anunoby, we've seen his impact as soon as he got traded to the Knicks. If he's there, you could throw him on Jaylen Brown, who got off to a very hot start early in the first quarter. And then if it's Tatum, you can still throw him on Tatum. He's very versatile on the defensive end, can switch. And he's really what has improved their defensive ceiling ever since acquiring him. And then he's a plus offensive player as well, a very good spot up shooter, especially from the corner he's knocked down. That's going to allow Jalen Brunson to operate in whatever space he chooses. We know he's efficient from the three with his pull-up jumpers. He's efficient when he does his post up in the mid range. He's efficient with his floaters. And, Jalen Brunson is just a great player offensively. And that if Julius Randle can stick to his strength and being inside on the interior of the paint, I think that just having that extra spacing that OG Anunoby provides is going to only unlock what those two can do offensively. And then not to mention your hustle player like Josh Hart, who's an animal on the rebounds, Steve Vincenzo, who plays the game the right way. And then you see a lot of other people coming along. McBride last night played very good minutes. You have Hartenstein, who's a hustle big, filling in for Mitchell Robinson. And I just think this team has a lot of stuff going for them that really can create problems for the Boston Celtics. They were in the game a lot yesterday. I know it got away from them like at the end of the second half, but I think they can really compete. I think they provide a certain level of toughness, certain level of physicality. And we know that comes from Coach Thibodeau and his mindset. He's been around the league for a lot of years. And I think that they just fit well together. And when you have a full strength New York Knicks squad, if you throw in Julius Randle and OG Anunoby in there last night, it's hard for me to say the outcome could not have possibly been different because I saw them be able to do a lot of things like bother Kristaps Porzingis when he had the ball in the post. And I think that's one of the areas they could really win at is just their depth because the Boston Celtics don't have too much depth. Now, they probably have one of the best starting five, probably the best starting five in the NBA. But once you get to that sixth, seventh man, who are really good players, but I just think the Knicks can really win in that area, bench scoring, bench production. So in a 7 game series, if I'm the Boston Celtics, I would not want to see this New York Knicks squad because they're in the same division, so they get to see each other a lot. So they're very familiar with each other's strategy and games. And Joe Mazzulla in a coach to coach matchup, I think a lot of times he's shown he can be out coached in playoff situations. So I think there's a lot of vulnerability from the Boston Celtics, specifically with the New York Knicks squad. And as it is right now, if the season was to end today, the Boston Celtics being the 1 seed and the Knicks being the 4 seed, they could possibly see each other in the second round. So we could very well actually be talking about this in a real situation. And I like the New York Knicks in this matchup. I think it could go either way, in my honest opinion. So I think the Knicks are the number one threat to the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, man. And we talked about this in another video, and you know how high I am on the Knicks, especially this season. But
Let me
my
get that
biggest
out the way too. You were
Mhm.
you were definitely telling me about the trade when they got Anunoby, and I was not a big fan about it. I thought that it kind of was not a pointless move or anything, but I didn't think it would make that much of a difference. And you definitely were correct on just the potential of how well of a trade it was, because all the other reasons like for future getting a big star and those things, and it's made an impact right now. So you were definitely right about this trade too. So I want to give you your
Yeah, I
props.
think appreciate it. I think we knew, specifically talking about that trade. I think we knew that OG would definitely make an impact, especially being on the defensive end and his ability to shoot the basketball. A lot of what you said, pretty much, we knew he would do that. We just didn't know how well it would affect this specific season. And we knew moving forward, they have a lot of options that they can do moving forward in terms of bringing in some players or bringing in a bigger star player or whatever the case may be. So adding a piece like OG is really good for the future, but it's having a big impact right now. But yeah, in terms of the biggest threat to the Celtics this season, I think we're on the same page there. The New York Knicks, man, and I think they match up very well with them. And I just want to put a disclaimer on it: a healthy New York Knicks team. That's one thing that gives me a cause of concern for the Knicks is their health. Missing two big pieces, OG Anunoby, the guy that we're talking about making such a big impact this season. He's been out with an elbow injury, and then Julius Randle, which is one of their lead players, is out with a dislocated shoulder, and we know how Julius Randle his game depends on being in a rhythm. If he just gets back right before the postseason comes, we know that he has had a tendency to struggle, especially when he's not in a rhythm. So that is something that gives me a cause of concern. But I still have high hopes for the New York Knicks. I think that they are a team that matches up very well with the Boston Celtics specifically, but I think that they're a team that can beat a lot of teams in the playoffs when it gets down to crunch time situations, when it gets down to tough games that you need to grind out in order to win. I think this team is built for that. And we just talked about their defense and specifically in that game against the Celtics last night in the first half. I saw Josh Hardenstein, and a plethora of other players, DiVincenzo making hustle plays, getting offensive rebounds, long offensive rebounds. They just do the right things to win. And they're shooting the ball way better than they have in the past. In the past 3 years with Thibodeau there, they've been more of a defensive team that kind of grinds out games. And this specific iteration of this team with DiVincenzo, with Josh Hart grabbing rebounds and things like that, and you have other players hitting threes. They just added Alec Burks and Bogdanovich, so that gives them a little bit more
Hmm.
firepower. McBride has played great in his role after they traded Emmanuel quickly. And so they have more offensive firepower. And I didn't even mention, like you said, Jalen Brunson and what he's doing. I mean, he's just a flat out star, man. I mean, there's nothing else, we can really question him about in terms of being a star player right now. Jalen Brunson provides a really big advantage for the Knicks, especially in crunch time situations. And when you look at the Celtics, we've seen them struggle in the past in crunch time situations, especially if shots aren't falling. And that's a big reason why they won last night. They hit like 8 or 9 threes in the third quarter alone, which really expanded that lead in the second half. So if shots aren't falling for the Celtics and things aren't really going their way, I think the New York Knicks are a team that have the best chance to beat them over the course of a series. I still am going to take the Boston Celtics. I think that they're the most talented team in the league, actually. Or I think that they're the most talented starting five in the league. I would say that. But if we're talking about the team that has the biggest chance to knock them off, I think the Knicks are that team. But, I do want to shout out the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm liking that team more and more every day. I'm watching them. They are the hottest team this year in 2024, starting from January 1st all the way till now. They're 18-3 over that span. And their offense is starting to click. They're super fast on all. They get up and down the floor, shoot a lot of layups, shoot a lot of threes, and I think they're a team to keep an eye out for. The Milwaukee Bucks, Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Anytime you have those two guys on the same team, you have to watch out for them. So if they can get their act together, I think that they can be a big threat to the Boston Celtics. But right now, at this moment, I really like a healthy Knicks team. If they can get OG back and they get Julius Randle back, get some rhythm going into the playoffs, I think that is the team that can take out the Boston Celtics.